This is the Relentless Optimist, a Meliora Company podcast. Stories of what's possible when curiosity, creativity and courage are combined.
It was never about this was going to be a big show. It was about the unique experience of the event and the technology and the way that his music will be heard this way for the first time.
It's a cold November evening in 2010. A few hundred people are gathering in a 19th century chapel in North London. They're not there for a sermon, but for an intimate performance from one of the world's most famous rock stars. Sir Elton John is about to make history. And while what happened inside the chapel was remarkable, the real magic would happen in people's homes across the UK. One artist, one piano, one chance to rethink what a live broadcast could be. This is the story of how a small venue, a bold idea, and a lossless audio stream rewrote the rules for digital media. From Meliora, this is the story of the Chapel of Elton. In 2010, Clive Dickens was Chief Operating Officer at Absolute Radio, a British commercial radio station based at the famous One Golden Square in London, that was promising people a new listening experience. Rather than the repetitive pop being played on most stations, they were causing waves by playing real music.
Absolute Radio's position in the market was a rebrand from the iconic Virgin Radio that therefore had to re-establish its position in the market around what we call discover real music. So one of the things we wanted to deliver as a radio station was always staying true to our target audience that we described as reluctant adults. These are consumers who are by definition 25-54. They've obviously matured, but they still have a passion for the things that they discovered when they were 15. They still go to live gigs. They still spend money, disproportionate money on entertainment and music. So it was in summer of 2010, we were starting to plan the next big event at One Golden Square. How were we going to bring together creativity, technology, and an amazing event for our audience and our clients to make us even more memorable? And it was the opportunity to work with one of the world's most creative people, as Elton John, with his new album, and also put him into a unique venue that we knew he'd never played before. And the opportunity was around being one of the first in the world to do a fully lossless audio codec live stream.
I'm Anthony Abbott. Back in the early 2010s, I was working at Absolute Radio, heading up the small but innovative digital team. We needed to do things differently. In general, we were very lucky to have a small but really talented team at Golden Square that were used to pushing boundaries when it came to content, pushing boundaries when it came to technology. At the time, we're talking 15 years ago, there wasn't a SaaS product or big tech to help us with this. It really was the Wild West at that point from a kind of streaming point of view. We were kind of pushing boundaries.
So streaming was becoming more and more mainstream, particularly music fans and audiophiles were pushing media companies and streaming companies and radio stations to improve their quality of their streams. FLAC as a standard existed, and it stands for fully lossless audio codec, meaning that it's streaming at over 1 megabit per second, which is technically not compressed at all. So if you're in a studio and they're on the end of a wire listening on an HDMI cord or some headphones, that's what you would listen to. But it was very, very unusual in 2010 to stream that down a commercial music radio station from Land's End to John O'Groats.
So the pitch to Elton John. A solo performance. No band, no fanfare. Just a piano, in a church, and broadcast in such high quality, listeners would think they were there. The challenge: how do you convince Elton it's worth it? James Curran was Absolute's head of music.
Elton could fill stadiums. The term for music artists of being legendary is, I think, often overused. But I think you could easily say that Elton is a bona fide music legend. I'd spoken to a lovely record company rep, Chris Page, and Chris was promoting the Elton John album to radio. And I basically said, what are the chances of some promo time with Elton? I probably had in mind an interview, but as the conversations with Chris developed, he mentioned that Radio 2 were doing an event with Elton John. So maybe slightly cheekily, but had nothing to lose, I says, well, would he consider doing something for Absolute? Thinking, to be honest, that they'd probably say a straight no. But Chris said, I'll take it to them and we'll have that conversation. So I was really pretty gobsmacked when Chris came back, probably a couple of weeks later, and said, you know what, they're considering it.
The idea of having Elton on the list was always a dream, a North Star. I personally had met Elton 2 or 3 times in my career. I didn't know him, he didn't know me, but I have met him, and I'm a massive fan of his music from being very young. So it was a dream to get him to agree.
If you follow Elton's career, he's always been an innovator. He's always been open to new things. And I think us saying to him and his record company, this is something new, hasn't been done before, this high definition streaming, Chris Page came back and said, yeah, it's a goer.
This is amazing. The fact the team have secured this incredible venue, they've secured this amazing storyteller, and we're going to do this world first, it made me incredibly proud and excited.
I can remember the day or this couple of days leading up to the event. And obviously, the content team and the marketing team were preparing the venue and working with Elton, the artist, to kind of make sure that the event would go well. But I guess us techies and digital team in the background, we were heading into this event that we had announced on air to our millions of listeners. We talked about in the press that we were going to do this big streamed event. And at the same time, right up until the wire, I guess, we didn't really know how it was going to go. We didn't know if we were going to pull it off.
Putting it all together was a logistical nightmare because it technically was a session from Elton, 3 to 5 songs. We'd positioned it to the guests as a live performance, an exclusive performance. And of course, because this was a pioneering live stream, the technology might not have worked as well. So the risks were mounting up, the jeopardy was there. Would Elton be in a good mood? Would Elton turn up? Would the technology work?
That feeling in the 48, 24 hours leading up to the event was sort of nervous anticipation, I suppose.
To pull all that together was a courageous thing to do. It is really about thinking, how does the art of music and storytelling get enhanced by the science of distribution? It involved the team being very courageous about what they could pull together. And also it demanded them to bring this level of can-do culture and optimism to this task, to say we can do this. Because when you do something for the first time, there's always that what could go wrong. And inside the teams I work with, when somebody says, this is really hard, typically I would say to people, it's only hard the first time. This is what innovation feels like.
The venue, the Union Chapel in Islington, a working church, nothing like the stadiums and arenas Sir Elton John had been selling out for decades.
Elton could have played Wembley Stadium that year and sold out. So for him to do a tiny venue like Union Chapel, which I think was something like 600 capacity, this would be a very, very small event compared to what he would be used to doing.
The Union Chapel in Islington, London, is a operating church. This is a church. It has a congregation. The artist himself literally said to me, I've never played here before, and that's one of the reasons I agreed to do it, because Clive, you found one of the few places in the world that I've never performed in. And then, of course, putting this live stream with this innovation around FLAC added that extra bit of special feeling to it as well, because the incredible high fidelity quality of that stream is really what that type of special place and that special artist deserved.
Now the night has arrived. The guests are taking their seats on old church pews. Among them, the great and good of British celebrity. The question now, will all the effort that's gone before have been worth it?
I remember going backstage talking to Elton and his team and saying, have you been outside to look at the venue? It's beautiful. And he went, no, Clive. I like to experience it the same way the audience experiences. I want to walk out on the stage and do my performance and have that feeling of wow, because everyone told me it looks beautiful. I think, and of course, he's a consummate professional, performing for years. There's no such thing as a sound check in Elton John's world.
Chris Goldson is the founder of Goldilocks, a Meliora strategic partner. But at the time, he was Absolute Radio's commercial director and was at Union Chapel for the performance.
It's just burnt and etched into my memory forever, which is a joy. It was low lighting, dramatic lighting, but certainly low lighting. And as you walked into this incredible space, you saw the empty stage apart from this amazing grand piano that you know was going to soon be played by one of the biggest stars in the world. There was just such excitement in the room, you could really feel it. It was just a privilege to be sitting in the same audience as James Corden, Baddiel and Skinner, Andy Murray was there. We had our own talent there. Of course, we had Christian O'Connell was the host. Christian stepped up on the stage and explained what we were going to experience.
I said to Christian, right, your job is to go on that stage, remind people that this is an exclusive session experience, not a concert. And it was like, and so, thanks, Clive. So I'm the one that's going to go and stand out there and tell people they might be out of here in 12 minutes. Yes, that's right. That's why you get paid the big bucks.
Elton John normally plays in front of 20, 30, 40, 50,000 people. There's 500 of us here. We're all going to get a really amazing performance. Now, normally you give someone like Elton John a standing ovation at the end of a performance like tonight. Look at this piano. Elton's in the wings. He's just about to come on. Why don't we, someone like that deserves a standing ovation right now. Everybody get on your feet. Let's welcome Sir Elton John with a standing ovation. And so everyone got up, and I was like, louder, louder, louder. Let's be standing as he comes on stage. Let's show Elton what he means to us. Everybody's on their feet. The noise is incredible. It's in a chapel. So I don't know what was happening with the acoustics, but it was really special. And so I can see he's really quite taken aback then as I'm stood where he was stood in the wings and I'm watching Elton John. And he's really quite taken aback by the standing ovation.
And then suddenly, out of this door in the back of the chapel, Elton himself came out.
He thanks the crowd, and then he sits down at this pearly white Steinway piano in the chapel. The sound in that place was incredible.
This performance, and the hairs on the back of my neck go up when I think about it.
You hope that the artist is going to enjoy the occasion. After the first song, Elton got a standing ovation from the room. But after every song, he got a standing ovation. I don't think I've ever seen that, ever.
So knowing that he was only committed to do 3 songs and that might become 5, he did an incredible 13 songs that included I'm Still Standing,
Rocket Man,
Take Me to the Pilot,
Your Song,
Tiny Dancer,
Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me,
and my personal favourite, 60 Years On.
It was just hit after hit. And I looked at Clive and he looked at me right after. We knew how special it had been. And probably knew that it would never be repeated for us as a station, anything quite as special as that. And it was incredible.
I found it actually quite emotional. There was a bit of an emotional trigger for me. He played, I guess that's why they call it the blues. That was a song that was around at a time in my own childhood, and it just took me straight back. That's the power of music, isn't it? It just can take you back to a moment or a memory in your life.
The team had created this environment where one of the most creative and talented and famous musicians in the world just didn't want to leave the stage. He just wanted to keep playing.
We were all kind of huddled around a computer at the time, kind of watching the data from the server, the streaming server, to see if, first of all, how many people were tuning in, but also if we were going to fall over at any second and the whole thing would be a disaster. I mean, luckily enough, we got through it, the event, and it was a great success. And I think as a performance and as a piece of tech innovation, it still stands up today as something that was really exciting.
The feedback from everyone from the audience in the chapel through the audience on air was spectacular. People knew they were listening to something special. They may not have been in the room, but they could sense from this performance that this was special. And for that smaller section of the people who are real audiophiles, people really appreciated that this was something that we'd gone that extra investment to bring this fully lossless audio codec to live music for the first ever time.
I think the long-term technology impact we can see, I guess, today in the likes of Spotify and Apple providing lossless listening experiences to their customers. We know that audiences really appreciate audio quality and enjoying the music they love in the best quality possible. For Absolute Radio at the time, it was kind of setting us on the path, I suppose, of saying, if you want to listen to radio in the best quality, then come and listen online. And that's part of what the legacy was of the gig.
The amazing technical advances we see every day with artificial intelligence and streaming, we don't remember the technology itself. We don't remember the AI. We remember the stories that came out of it. It's never just about technology for technology's sake. It's about the story and the human connection of that, bringing that technology to life. And that's really what stood out for me from this incredible moment in November 2010.
This was the first story, but it won't be the last. The Relentless Optimist is a Meliora podcast. We believe better is always possible. This podcast is produced by 1860, podcasts for ambitious brands.